Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Daily Brief Recap. I'll try and do this in like 10-15 minutes. See how we do today. We're getting so close. It's now December, and Sjord has told us that the scanning engine will be live at the end of the year, so we're under a month to go, and all of this should be reporting super sexy information. So we're taking advantage of our developer cycle, trying desperately to develop tools that will make us all ready to take advantage of the next cycle. So stay tuned, folks. For the purposes of this free video, I put together a cute little sort of deck, and hopefully what you see is the message doesn't change a heck of a lot from day to day. Right out of the gate, unfortunately, we had politicians kind of sandbag the market and the economy right now with talk that, gee whiz, maybe we won't have any trade deals until after the election in next November. Market really didn't like to hear that at all, and what I've noticed is we're just getting sort of across the board selling out of the U.S. market. We had a huge sell come in on the bonds yesterday, which I couldn't figure out at all. I think to a certain degree they were playing catch up with the other markets, but now we see across the board selling in big U.S. stocks. So we are seeing a precipitous pullback here in the U.S. dollar index. We talked recently about top end of the range, little wick there, nice FU. Here we are coming up against the bottom end of the range here, a little bit of an FU. You can see they're already painting a bit of a tail. And what actually this is going to create is what they call a megaphone, which means get ready for even more volatility. But I still think on balance, higher time frame weekly trading range, we're caught right now in this very, very wide window. So U.S. dollar index could jump around here all over the place. We had big rebound in yen today. We'll talk a little bit about risk on, risk off. Euro and British pound even moving up here. Looks like it's going to break its recent topping pattern. So now we appear to be seeing not only worry about, there is no resolution to any of this trade dispute stuff with China. And then, you get given a date like, we won't even look at it at all in 2020. That's a huge uncertainty, and so as a result, we're getting that sort of risk on, risk off trade. Risk on is coming off big time. In a weird sort of way, though, maybe we're going through the process of these assets that I personally think ought to be correlated, cleaning themselves up a bit. It's interesting to see oil's actually moving up here a little bit in the face of the stocks coming off. And you can see Bitcoin's even ticking up here a little bit. And we'll talk a little bit more about Bitcoin in a moment. But I'm getting the feeling of just sort of the tone that people have lost interest in shorting Bitcoins here. We'll see how that goes. Like I said, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. The risk-off proxies, as you can clearly see, they are enjoying a nice up day here. Remember we saw yesterday the bonds came off a huge chunk. I always think that the currencies like to lead everything, so if we see the yen smartly rallying here, then it shouldn't surprise us to see things like gold and stuff moving up. And we've been watching this risk on, risk off trade, and it's basically been one directional for about the past 4 or 5 months. And so, does it make sense that maybe we got to go the other direction now for a little while? It makes sense to me. So if we look at our bonds, for example, they're just sort of chopping around here. Wild ranges. Gap violently lower yesterday. Remember I said that seemed really odd. Gap violently higher here today now that the stocks are breaking. In a weird sort of way, I can almost see like an inverted head and shoulders that might actually take the bonds right back up top. And as I said that before, if I actually do get that situation, I might just go buy another bond put. Here is that yen, and interesting how we did make new closed line lows here, but we've rallied right back to the trend line here. Remember I guess middle of last week or so, we talked a little bit about this Doji gap setup, which projects price down into this area, and you notice that the counter trend rally has done nothing more than just fill the gap in. Probably the market of these three that actually has my attention the most. I'm not really impressed. I mean, I certainly don't want to be a buyer of bonds here. Yen, yeah. I mean, do I want to go and buy yen and not get any yield on my investment? Yeah. I mean, I can understand sort of fear proxies, U.S. economy's going to hell in a handbasket, blah, blah, blah. But technically speaking, I'm not really seeing a bottom here in yen. But, we head on over to the metal space, and we are starting to see some really interesting price action here. We've talked quite a bit recently about the 38.2 tests that need to happen. They were going to pull the market back and test these key lows, and if we could turn back up, then hello, we get a nice double bottom breakout, and you can see that's actually a pretty good looking W. Now, our rule is that we really don't like to take a trade on the trendline break. What we would really like to see now is for the market to just calm down, put in a nice polite W, and we got ourselves a new bull market. So, that's encouraging. It's good to see. And it's interesting. Of course, we've been watching these gold stocks quite a bit recently. I like to follow the biggest gold stock in the world, American Barrick, but of course, Newmont, they announced a big share purchase program. They want to get their damn stock price up, so they regain that title. Either way, I mean, you can see how the gold stocks popped here right out of the gate first thing this morning. The only problem is, can you go and buy that? I mean, we are going to, it looks like, and, who knows what's going to happen by the end of the day. But we had said a close above 2263 would give us that W on the other side of the trend line, which is what we want to see. So, really, I don't have a problem if you want to, own some Barrick. Maybe even tonight in our TRI SOF club, we'll take a look at what the options look like. But on balance, we have turned. And actually, it was really cool to sort of walk everybody through that process of the market turning. At this point now, and actually it's interesting to see this huge hole on the profile here. And then also notice value high, little notch up here. My hunch is we're probably going to spend the next month or two sort of working our way through this whole range. But at the very least, we've got signs that, hey, higher lows and higher highs defines a bull market, not a bear market that we've been watching forever here. So that's encouraging. And actually in the daily brief today, won't go into too much detail, but I've got quite a portfolio of metal stocks. Some of them are a little more senior. I've been squawking to you guys about ALO recently. You can see it's moved up nicely. I got sort of bigger name platinum palladium stocks. Got a bunch of sort of VSE, VCIM venture cap investment model names, but for whatever, and then there's a couple interesting names I'm keeping a close eye on. I sure love this Great Panther now. We've come right back down against the bottom end of its historical range. And I do like the idea of buying some zinc in here. So I've been watching this U.S. zinc stock here closely. So I don't have these guys, but I have all these guys on the books. So I do have a fair bit of metal exposure. But at the same time, too, what I really want to see is nice big fat W's. We were really close on Alio this morning. Nothing really there just yet. But, good to see that the market's firming up here nicely. And seasonally, this is really when this should happen. And we should have a nice little rally window here for probably the next month or two. So risk on, risk off. Stocks getting their lunch handed to them here today. Spent a lot of time, of course, in the daily brief talking a bit about what do sort of bear market expectations. I'm still thinking the Dow needs to work up December 24th kind of idea. So if we were going to ABE equals CD, where do we actually have to pull back to here in the short term to set up that move up top there? And I do like the idea of us coming back and filling in this gap here at about 27,000 roughly on the Dow. And of course, chop suey right here, absolute mess. Nothing really trade-wise to do through this. I have to see more structure, market starting to smile at us, all that kind of time. So, big violent drop there in risk on stocks. It's interesting though. A bunch of our pharma names still doing pretty well, and actually we've got a couple ones. Like I said, there's some names here that just look so compelling right now. But you can definitely feel the pressure in the risk on. Risk off, same thing we said, just basically the same message past couple days. Getting nice counter trend rallies against the highs. Let's see how far these can push up. And as I had said there a moment ago as well, I actually really like the idea of buying a bit of gold here through this seasonal window. And I do have a bunch of metal proxies on the books, so if this thing has legs, I will participate. The recent theme of late, of course, pharmaceutical stocks have done really, really well. Here's yet another one, this Gem Fire that I'm watching really closely. We were actually very strong first thing this morning. Give me a nice close above this, what is that close? 39.58 area. And I'll be very, very interested in grabbing some of this. There's that Alio. You can see the W now coming in. Had a pretty nice rally here this morning. Just filled in the gap. I still think we're very rangy here. And we'll see if the gold has legs. Like I said, what we need to see now for the gold to really rock and roll is we actually need to see a W now come in. So it's good to see at least they've established a floor. I suppose we can pop on over to corn now. Like I said, we were talking earlier this morning on the site, in daily briefs and stuff. And I actually even mentioned this to you guys yesterday. We opened up this week on a down note. And I just simply said, and my message for the site community is if you see this weekly candle turn green, then I still think we got a pretty good shot at heading up into this 38.2 here, 8,000. And actually, there are a couple technical objectives up in this area, 81, 82, 8,300, that I think are actually quite doable. So just over the short term, you can see they've already started to bring the market back here a bit. If we can turn and print green, it means we are into the wick, and we might see some fireworks here. Off of higher time frames, like we said, V bottom. Remember there was a gentleman who put out a video, and actually somebody even shared it on the site. What we really want to see for this thing to actually be a bottom is we want to see volatility come out of the market. So as long as we get these kind of insane 1 week big green candles and big red candles kind of stuff, we're not near a bottom. If anything, what you really need to see is this thing just calm down. And then, of course, like I said, repeatedly here on this channel, really what we need to start seeing are W's. And this whole idea that we start painting higher lows and higher highs. Kind of like what we're seeing in the gold market right now, actually, ironically enough. So things are looking uppy. Now, in the short term, we're in this little trading competition. I strapped on off of this M and then further M's. I have my little bot working. It's interesting, we came up into an interesting little Davo short-term bullish setup off of the double bottom here, hit its 2-to-1, and then we stalled. But I kind of put out a tweet this morning kind of saying, as long as they're freaking out about the stock market, the higher-ups, they're not, I'm getting the feeling that they've kind of lost interest in shorting Bitcoin here right now. And their attention is focused elsewhere. And so in a weird sort of way, they always say there's an old adage, don't short a dull market. And I got to tell you, this is starting to feel like a very dull market. I do think we had cute little setups, Davos, that produce nice 2-to-1s off of indicator signals, W's, rally back up to trendline. But you can even see now, there is basically the trendline tag, the 2-to-1, that's done. And now we've set up a trading range, bottom end of the range. If we lose that low, fractal top, see you later. If we break this high, then that's continuation pattern, and we're probably going to work our way right back up. Look at this big old wick that needs eating. And I might just get stopped out on my little, bot short trade that I have on here for our little trading competition. And if that's the case, that's the case. I mean, really, I don't think it's a good idea to give yourself too much discretion during markets, during trades, to start trading, start changing your rules and stuff. I like trading the bot. The bot tells me where to enter. It tells me where to risk to. And, of course, if I'm right, then what are some realistic profit windows? So my message to the site was, it feels like the path of least resistance is up. I am short off of this level. I'll live with the loss. If the setup fails, I'll just walk away. No big deal. So that's sort of what I'm seeing right now. And how ironic. I mean, I don't know how this is going to end. But we could very easily roll over here and this M's out and keep heading lower. You just don't know what the hell's going to happen. So my big message in sort of the daily brief was, I got the position on. Trader's life, you are paid to worry. I don't want to go down the path of giving myself discretion to tinker with trades. 9 times out of 10, that almost always ends badly. So I'm just going to live with the trade. Got my stop working. If I get blasted, I get blasted. It's trader's life. And then finally, just an interesting commentary on altcoins. What we're seeing a lot of now is names that, and the problem here, of course, Trex, right? Be careful about Trex, and especially coins that are only listed on Trex. I see a lot of these. They've basically just thrown the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, hopefully everybody sees the beautiful W's. If you can participate in this market, great. My suggestion is, if you are interested in doing this kind of trading, make damn sure you can do things like download cold storage wallets just in case Trex pulls a fast one. Don't take too much risk, right? And just live by the sword, die by the sword. If you're like, well, Brian, I don't want to take the risk of Trex playing their games, then just don't bother. You just leave it. It's just another name. But, for those that are adventurous, hopefully everybody can see the letter of the alphabet. You can see what happened when W's came in before, translated into rallies. Looks to me like this is just rinse and repeat kind of stuff. So, caveat emptor. All right, everyone. I think I'll leave the daily brief recap at that. Hopefully you got some good value out of some of the information I told you today. Have yourselves a great day. All the best, and bye for now.